Because as of January, well, the average regular gas in the United States price is pretty small. The amount is cheaper than most of the prices that we saw last year. Average price for gas is already on January 13th is nearly the same as the previous week's average, but 4 cents higher than average from 1 month ago. Because according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, well, the price drop is starkest when you look at the current average compared with peak prices, about a 34% decline since June. When you look back on further and compare current cost with gas price at the same time last year, it's now about 2 cents cheaper. Spot shortages can easily drive up the gas prices locally because of refinery or pipeline shutdowns or just blending issues. But big nationwide swings in the price of gas are almost due to the price of crude oil. And new data from the Energy Information Administration shows that the cost of raw crude oil typically represents more than half of the cost of a gallon of gas. Refining and distribution and tax account for the remainder. Over time, the price of crude oil has just significantly increased with supply and demand, many factors affecting both, but recession, crisis, and higher prices tend to tamp down demand. Gas prices in the pump rarely affect the market day conditions. Instead, they represent costs incurred per week, folks. So what does this mean? Because gas prices are smaller, does it mean that we'll become getting stimulus checks anytime soon? Well, here's my answer to that. First of all, drivers in Hawaii, California, Washington, Nevada, and Alaska are seeing the highest gas prices, and food prices have also increased 0.2%. It marked a slowdown relative to the increases that have been seen for most of the year. Compared with a year ago, it was 11.8%. Versus 6.5% overall for all inflation items in the index. In an interview with CNBC, the CEO of Kroger said the company expects grocery inflation to remain relatively high this year, but to ease as the year progresses. A good growing season for farmers around the world will contribute to easing inflation pressures because eggs have been one of the most categories that have seen the most inflation, with prices up 11% in December, and even in November things were high too. So recently the House did pass a bill to seek lower gas prices by cracking down on alleged price gouging by the energy companies. This Consumer Fuel Price Gouging Prevention Act grants the president authority to issue emergency proclamations and make it illegal to increase gas, energy prices in excessive and exploitative ways. Yeah, people are exploiting people for stimulus checks, but it's definitely not cool. Instead, it is very bad and wrong what President Biden has done. Folks, here's what I'm talking about. The Biden administration and Democrats in Texas are the nation's top energy producing states. They were also aware of this bill. In the days leading up to a bill to support this vote, well, it was unclear whether the bill even has enough support to pass. Moderate Democrats were frustrated with the bill. Democrats in Texas see the nation's top energy producing state wary of the bill, and they fear legislation could be targeting the industry and pretty much unfairly without proof of actual price gouging. Gas tax holiday, for example, would have removed all taxes on the cost of gas, but the president reconsidered rebate cards, which is another option to provide millions of people relief at the pump. So, I am in support of this, and I do think it's a good idea, but it's definitely not enough because Joe Biden should do more for the people in sending out stimulus payments. If you guys agree, then be sure to subscribe.
The baby. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ann Williams-Isom, and I'm the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services. And the mayor doesn't know this, but this is a very special speech for me and a very special week for me. My oldest daughter is getting married on Saturday. And it's been very interesting, all of the emotions that I've been having. So while we go to pick up the wedding dress this afternoon, I can't help but think about my ancestors and all of the women in my life. My mom, my 92-year-old mom, who I would have wanted to be here today, but we're trying to keep her safe to get to Saturday, and all of my grandmother and all of the women that have brought us to this moment. Today we're talking about women's health. And I think I've told this story before, but my grandmother died in childbirth with my mom. So when we talk about in New York City in 2023, that still 9 times, it's more likely for an African-American woman is 9 times more likely to die from a pregnancy-related complications, it's personal to me. When I think about my own personal history with my body, I think about that soon-to-be married woman who I had bad postpartum with. And y'all know nobody likes to see a pregnant woman or a woman with a baby that's not happy. So no one wanted to listen to me. If it wasn't for my mom, who's a midwife and a nurse and was with me, I don't know how we'd made it through. I had trouble.
The Senate returns to Washington today and will forge ahead on President Biden's social spending bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer wants to pass the legislation before Christmas, but the Senate adjourns for the holiday in just 2 weeks, December 13th. It's a tight deadline, and Democrats still have to get moderate Senators Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema on board. Both have threatened to derail the plan. Democrats cannot afford to lose a single vote. Lawmakers are also facing 2 December deadlines: funding the government and raising the debt ceiling. Congress has until Friday to fund the government or face a shutdown. As for the debt ceiling, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says the government could reach its limit by December 15th.
So folks, the 5.9% COLA increase is going to mean the larger checks for seniors. And lawmakers and economists are now concerned about how much these benefits will actually increase during the crisis. Chuck Schumer has actually announced a new deadline to pass Biden's social spending bill. So we have a ton of news to go over about the fourth stimulus check, and you want to be sure to stay at the end of the video to find out the latest news about your stimulus payments. Now, Chuck Schumer said today that he will bring President Biden's bill to the Senate floor once the parliamentarian finishes reviewing it, and that it is his goal to pass the roughly $2 trillion bill by the end of the year. Schumer said from the Senate floor that once this necessary work is completed with the parliamentarian, that he's going to bring President Biden's legislation to the floor so that he can pass as soon as possible. That's good news, everybody. Now, Schumer's comments come after the House passed the climate and social spending bill before a weeks-long Thanksgiving break, and the bill faces a hurdle in the Senate where Democrats' 50-seat majority leaves no room for error. Now, lawmakers are also trying to tie up the end-of-year crunch with a backed-up legislative to-do list, including funding the government and raising the debt ceiling, plus passing a big defense bill, which is currently stuck in limbo. Now, Chuck Schumer didn't specify what week he'll try to bring the climate and spending bill to the floor, and also the Democrats are holding talks this week with the Senate parliamentarian, who offers guidance on whether provisions in the bill comply with Senate budget rules. Now, folks, Congress also faces a December 3rd deadline to fund the government, and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said that needs to raise the nation's borrowing limit by December 15th. What are your thoughts on Congress, everybody? Are they doing all that it takes to send out the fourth stimulus check yet? I want to know your thoughts on this. Now, Congress also faces, plus the Social Security Administration has announced a historic cost of living adjustment of 5.9% that will be applied to benefits for 2022. The increase makes history as the highest offered to seniors in over 40 years. And it's mostly a result of higher than normal inflation brought on by multiple factors resulting from the crisis. Now, the annual boost to monthly payments will help go some way toward keeping seniors and disabled recipients from losing purchasing power. And much of this increase is likely to be offset by similar rises in cost of goods and Medicare. Plus, many of you guys have asked when the hike will take effect. The boost will benefit around 70 million people who receive Social Security or Supplemental Security income. It will begin December 30th in 2021, when around 8 million SSI recipients see their first payments based on the COLA 2022. The remaining beneficiaries can expect their first check with the increase reflected in January. The estimated average for a retired worker will be $92. $92 more